we're going to be venturing into the second mode of the 7 modes of the major scale, the Dorian mode. Now, right off the bat, the Dorian mode gives us a different mood than the Ionian mode, right? Going straight into that whole thing of how each mode, each scale has its own emotional conveyance. And the Dorian mode, for me, it sounds very psychedelic. Obviously, it was a popular mode used in 70s psychedelic rock and that kind of stuff, which I love. But it has like a weird, inquisitive sound to it. I don't know how to describe it. It's a very complex emotion, but I love it, So, and like I said, with all these modes, if we were to just take the major scale and rearrange some notes, change them up a little bit, we'd have a completely different scale or mode. So in the case of the Dorian mode, obviously we're doing the same thing where we're sticking to E, right? So rather than, playing through the Dorian mode, starting with the major scale and then continuing it on in that new position, we're gonna focus on every mode just with that low E that we can drone out so we can get to know each note individually. So root note is the same, obviously, we're in E. The second is the same. Our third, it's no longer this third, the major third, right? It is a minor third. We flattened that third. So it's the same note as this, but up here. It's just easier to play it up here as opposed to, because it's particularly stretchy. So we'll just do it here. So we have our first, second, our flatted third or our minor third, same thing. Then we have our fourth, right? Oh, by the way, the fret numbers are 7, 9, 10. And then on the D string, we have 7, 9. And then we have on the 6th fret of the G string, our 6th degree, which is the same as in the major scale, just like the 4th and 5th were. And then we have our 7th, which is actually flattened. So we have a minor 7th here. So we have our root, 2nd, it's the same, right? Minor 3rd, that 3rd is different. 4th is the same, 5th is the same, 6th is the same, 7th is flatted. And then with our octave. Very different mood compared to watch me switch moods. Love that sound. It's like earthy. It's not like sad sounding, even though it has that minor tonality to it. That major 6 really gives it, that's really the kicker, is really like that major 6 where you get that very inquisitive kind of sound. So let's do some wandering. Let's see what kind of cool melodies we can come up with. So yeah, I'm just gonna play some random notes and then see how we do. Cool, so just like that approach we did in the last video where it was just starting off, wandering, playing random notes, and then kind of listening, actively listening and hearing, okay, I can hear a melody happening, right? Like the larval stage of a melody, and then I'll just, finish it up, right? So it's like the front half is wandered notes, and then the back half is actual intended notes to make it a complete melody, That's a completely valid way to do that, especially if you're trying to kickstart and get into the habit of being able to create melodies on the fly. You want to start by just wandering through the scales, because again, that's partly how you train your ear and get to know each note individually. So we already know the root note sounds resolute, right? We got our second, a little bit of tension, same thing with the Ionian, but that minor third, it's where it starts to get a little dark. Just going that 1, 2, 3, right? With those notes, and these happen to be the same notes in a minor scale too, which we'll get to once we get into the Aeolian mode, which is the minor scale, the natural minor scale, and then we get to 4th and 5th. It's pretty, straight ahead minor, and then that sixth, right, that's the kicker. And then with that flat seventh. Ooh, see, okay, so this was a mistake, but I'm gonna actually try to make this into a teaching moment here, right? That I played a major seven there, not the minor seven. And notice how it completely threw everything off, right? It sounded wrong, right? In this instance, it was a mistake. You know, I'm not gonna play it off like, oh, just jazz, you know, just playing jazz. No, I made a mistake, right? And I'm not shy about mistakes. I'm not a perfect player, never will ever claim to be one. I'm always gonna be learning and improving and, you know, getting there when it comes to being a guitar player. But I like to take mistakes and really try to use them as ways to, as like kind of like self-teaching moments. But since we're here together, let's be in this together. So I played that major seven on accident, right? Threw off the whole thing. Just to show you, this goes to show you why the ear training is so important, right? You heard how that was. It just didn't really work. So that innate sense of, even if you feel like you're tone deaf, right? You know, I know a lot of people who play music, but they still consider themselves tone deaf in some degree or another. And I really feel like, you know, if you test yourself enough, you'll realize you're not as tone deaf as you think you are. If this sounded perfectly fine to you compared to, now if it was done with intention, that's a different story. But because it was a mistake, it was pretty obvious that I ventured outside and I kind of changed the mood. The mood changed, right? So that innate sense of just hearing tension and certain things clashing and kind of sounding wrong or right, or kind of making sense, all that stuff is great because you do have an innate sense of that. And also, I mean, it's also learned because you grew up listening to music. If you're here watching this right now, there's no way you didn't, right? I mean, we all love music, we love guitar, that's why we're here. So that being part of like how you were raised into music, right? In whatever way it was, is like you have this inner musician that's like this musical compass that's gonna really help you out, especially when it comes to figuring out like kind of what works or what doesn't. So that was a nice little sidebar just to kind of drive the point home on why ear training is really important, right? We're focusing on keeping within that mood, right? And as I'm kind of wandering here, I'm noticing certain combinations of notes I don't vibe with them too much, but certain ones I do. And so I filter through those and then just archive the ones that I like. Like I really like this, like I like that, right? I think earlier I was playing the second instead of the third, but the second was too much of a jump, right? That just to me feels good, feels logical, right? And my ear is happy with it. When I did, not really. I mean, maybe I can make that work. I mean, I probably could if I were to spin it, you know, or at least take it to a different direction. But for where it started with the wandering, the intent started to come in, and then I realized I like that note. That's what I want to do. So now I just made myself a lick. That sounds cool. I mean, yeah, I could totally use that. So, like, this is all just to kind of illustrate, you know, how this is supposed to look when you're practicing this, right? And that's what I invite you to do, is to sit and just wander through the scale and try to complete whatever kind of melodic idea that you get inspired by. As you're walking through this scale and you're really getting to know how each individual note clashes with the root note to further inspire the musical ideas and also to get you familiar with the context of each note. That way, when next time you approach, let's say you get really comfortable with the Dorian mode, you know, you'll know exactly what you're gonna get if you, let's say, start on the 6th, or you start on the 5th, or you start on the 2nd, right? Whatever scale degree you decide to start off with, you're gonna have a pretty good idea of the kind of tension it's gonna give you. And having that, like, understanding right off the bat is gonna put you in a lot more control of what you come up with melodically. So you start by taking those risks, by wandering, right? And you do it in a safe, you know, scenario where you're just at home figuring it out on your own, feeling it out, just you and your guitar. But then when you start to take in, you make an inventory of great ideas that you like, and I mean, this is going to spill over to just everything. Like, it's not just, I mean, we're focusing on the Dorian mode in this example, but it's like, this concept applies to every scale that you will learn from now on forever, right? So this is great. This is a great foundation for you to start off with. So just remember, like, you can start by just playing random notes and then complete those ideas with like more intended melody. And then over time, it's like the training wheels will slowly come off and you'll be able to, go into it with melodic intent, right? So, and it might take some time, but this is where the fun is. You get to experiment and you'll come up with really cool ways to combine different notes, and you'll come up with ideas that are completely unique to you because you came up with them and I didn't tell you to play them. Buckle up, because we're just getting started. We got 5 more modes to get through, and we're gonna approach them all in the same way, and you're gonna come out of this whole thing being pretty well versed in what the modes are all about. So, very excited about that, and I'll see you in the next one.